Then we have another thing where Brittney Griner says that says something about that effing white girl. Now, can you imagine the outrage if Caitlin Clark said those things? That Angel Reese, that black girl, was running.
The WNBA is embroiled in yet another issue that sums up everything that is wrong with the way the league handles its best star. After fouling out against the Indiana Fever, Brittney Griner is shown in disturbing video calling Caitlin Clark a fucking white chick. The league, which has benefited greatly from Clark's celebrity, is still ignoring the player who single-handedly protected their faltering organization from being singled out for harassment and abuse.
Sure what she said, but the way people are taking it is that she said some very disrespectful stuff. Alright, so let's take a look at what she is saying right here. I'm not a lip reader, but it looked like right here she says, effing white girls. Oh man. Effing trash, effing white girls. Effing trash right there.
The events that transpired during the Indiana Fever's 81-76 victory against the Atlanta Dream on Thursday night were nothing short of shameful. But tragically, anyone who has been seeing how WNBA players treat Caitlin Clark will not be surprised. The same athlete that was traded for the Russian merchant of death and caused a worldwide stir, Brittney Griner, obviously couldn't take losing to a 22-year-old point guard who is roughly half her weight.
The post from Brittney Griner, and one thing I don't understand is that, like, there is some kind of flimsy evidence, I guess. Like, we're not lip readers. We're not lip readers. She probably says trash. Like, it sounds like she has said. It looks like what it apparently says is effing.
Griner struggled terribly throughout the game, scoring just 5 points in 25 minutes before being sent off after picking up too many fouls. However, cameras captured what appeared to be Griner mouthing the words trash and effing white chick in reference to Caitlin Clark, rather than leaving the court with the respect of a professional athlete. Give that some time to sink in. A seasoned athlete who ought to be an inspiration to younger sportsmen turned to racial epithets because she couldn't stand being outplayed by a player half her height.
Guys did not watch the game in its entirety. Brittney Griner fouled out late in the fourth, and she was in foul trouble the whole game. The referees was definitely calling everything on her. Even though the Indiana Fever really didn't get a chance to shoot a bunch of free throws that game, they was making specifically calls against Brittney Griner, and she was getting frustrated about it, man. Now, footage has surfaced, a couple different takes on this clip as well as to what she actually said. Some people said she didn't call Caitlin Clark a effing white girl. Some people say that she said what a effing whack call. At the end of the day, she said something.
The video, which has now gone viral on social media, makes Griffin's sudden outburst quite evident. Even casual onlookers can perceive what seems to be happening because of the visual evidence, even though lip reading isn't a precise science. This isn't a vague motion or a vague sound. Because she was unable to cope with her own subpar performance on the basketball court, this professional athlete appears to be using racial slurs against a teammate.
Well, now it appears that Brittney Griner has been caught on video. And yes, there's a certain amount of lip reading that's going on here, but y'all let you be the judge, because I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to try to decipher what it is Brittney Griner was saying. By the way, she fouled out of a WNBA game against Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever. She plays for the Atlanta Dream now. So here we go. Brittney Griner, who Joe Biden acquired 2 years ago and maybe the most lopsided trade of all time, this side of Deshaun Watson, was caught on camera saying what appeared to be some not very nice things about white girl Caitlin Clark during her little WNBA game last night.
If you're having fun, please subscribe. The circumstances surrounding this tragedy are what make it even more upsetting. Caitlin Clark only scored 11 points in the win, so it wasn't even a tremendous night by her standards. Clark wasn't going to embarrass Griffin in front of a national audience by giving up 30 points, and this was just one instance of one player performing her duties while another player lost all composure and reportedly used words that would have resulted in the termination of any other worker in any other American business. However, the Griner incident wasn't the only controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark in that particular game, which aptly reflects the toxic environment she encounters each and every night, a court in the WNBA. Clark and Ryan Howard also got into a fight during that game, which led to both players receiving technical fouls. In reaction to this event, the league fined both players $30 each, treating them as though they had equal responsibility for whatever happened between them. Take a moment to consider that. The WNBA determined that a $30 fine, the equivalent of pocket change for professional athletes, was the proper punishment for both parties following an altercation between their biggest star and another player. However, the league has been silent when Brittney Griner seemed to hurl racial epithets against that same great player.
Seeing a lot of very, very racist women, right? These are racist women who were told that they were God's gift to women's basketball, that they are black, and because of that, they are better than white people at sports. That's the one area that they can succeed over white people in sports, right? And this is their league, right? Then you got a young, the stereotypical white girl, pretty, skinny, is better than it comes into the sport and becomes the Michael Jordan, LeBron James of the sport. The face gets more publicity on one than they've ever got in some of their playoff, any of their games ever. Brings more money. They are extremely jealous and won't say it. They want to make it like it's typical basketball. But no, they have made it very clear. Angel Reese, the Brittney Griners, nobody cared about their league.
When it comes to safeguarding Caitlin Clark, the WNBA has made selective enforcement and disparate standards its defining characteristic. As if the player who has transformed their sport is somehow equally accountable for every unpleasant encounter she has, the league is eager to place equal responsibility and impose similar sanctions when Clark gets into any kind of physical incident. However, the league abruptly acquires a case of selective blindness when other players transgress boundaries that shouldn't exist in professional sports. When you take into account the financial contribution Caitlin Clark makes to the WNBA, the $30 punishment for the Howard incident appears even more absurd. This player has the ability to make a Tuesday better just by being there. Their games often attract television crowds that other WNBA competitions can only hope to match, and their jersey sales have shattered league records, turning night games into a cultural event. However, the league does not defend her when she is the victim of genuinely unacceptable behavior and handles her like any other player when it comes to punishment. The Griner incident and the wider handling of Caitlin are both examples of what we are seeing. Clark's actions are hardly unique. It is a component of a methodical targeting pattern that is now impossible to overlook due to its increased visibility.
Another thing where Brittney Griner says that says something about that effing white girl. Now, can you imagine the outrage if Caitlin Clark said those things? That Angel Reese, that black girl, was running from that. Why is it that the black players can be openly racist? There's investigation into racist comment, but you can be racist toward a white girl who is bringing all these eyes to the WNBA.
Now, it appears that Brittney Griner is taking this targeting to a whole new level by using offensive language to express her annoyance over Clark's success. This trash language between athletes isn't competitive, because she can't bear to be outperformed by someone who embodies everything the league ought to be celebrating. This seasoned player is acting in a way that seems to transcend racial boundaries. The trend is obvious. Players turn to stirring up controversy, fabricating drama, or, in Griner's case, seemingly using language that has no place in professional athletics when they can't match Caitlin Clark's basketball skills, drawing power, or professional demeanor. It resembles when a group of adults, who are supposedly professional athletes representing the top division of women's basketball, become so enraged at a child's accomplishments that they turn to bullying techniques on the playground. This pattern's increased predictability is what makes it even more unsettling. Each and every time it is practically possible to predict when the next contrived controversy would surface, because Clark consistently breaks attendance records and attracts new followers to the sport. Instead of concentrating on their own games, it seems like several players have made attacking Clark their main contribution to basketball conversation.
That Bob Griner said trash followed by fucking white girl. Now, like I said, I'm not a lip reader. I don't know what she said. But again, the perception is the only thing that matters. And the perception throughout the WNBA is players dislike Caitlin Clark because she's white. I think the main reason they dislike Caitlin Clark is because she's white and has elevated the league into the mainstream.
The WNBA's total inability to defend the athlete who has contributed more to their league than anyone in recent memory is arguably the most frustrating part of the whole scenario. This same group has observed Caitlin Clark turns their sport into a cultural phenomenon rather than a niche commodity. However, it appears that they are more concerned with pleasing the players that pursue her than safeguarding their most important resource. The league's lack of response to the Griner incident reveals a great deal about its priorities and spine. The WNBA has decided not to confront the issue head-on after discovering film that seems to show one of their players hurling racial epithets at their biggest star. This is not merely subpar leadership. Avoiding uncomfortable conversations at the expense of upholding professional standards is a sign of cowardly leadership. Examine how other professional sports leagues respond to comparable circumstances. When you take into account the league's prior reactions to far less serious events involving Clark, their inaction on the Griner incident appears even more heinous. They quickly placed equal blame for the Howard altercation, implying that they are more than capable of acting when it is convenient for them. However, they abruptly become paralyzed when they encounter what appears to be racist remarks made about their star player.
The thing is, I wonder what would happen if you catch one of the white players saying effing black girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, what would happen if Caitlin Clark was saying something around that way with her lips? Oh, the internet would burn down, fam. They will be coming at Caitlin Clark left and right. You already have some people, especially in the media, saying, oh yeah, Caitlin Clark always get these special whistles. She's this, she's that, race this, race that. So I can only imagine if she messed around and had a video that was close to something like this. Come on, fam.
The WNBA made one of the most ill-advised choices in contemporary sports management when it came to Caitlin Clark's protection. This goes beyond simply acting morally, though that ought to be sufficient justification. The goal is to safeguard an investment that has revolutionized their whole sector. There is no question about Caitlin Clark's influence on WNBA attendance, TV ratings, and retail sales. It is a quantifiable truth that appears in all of the league's financial metrics. Her games routinely draw far larger crowds than other WNBA games. The league's best-selling jersey is hers. Additionally, her participation has drawn media attention and sponsors that the WNBA could not have obtained with their full marketing budget. However, by permitting other players to foster poisonous conditions around their biggest attraction, the league appears intent on undermining the success. Targeting Clark becomes acceptable when athletes like Brittney Griner can reportedly use foul language without being suspended, or when Angel Reese can spend months creating scandals with no repercussions. This strategy is financially suicidal in addition to being immoral. The WNBA fought for television coverage, pleaded with fans to care about their product, and struggled for relevancy for decades. When Caitlin Clark shows up and resolves a lot of these issues on her own, the league fails to shield her from the players who ought to be appreciating her for improving their sport.
One person said, I will be reaching out to the WNBA to ask if Caitlin Clark, a trash effing white girl, violates this recent announcement, no tolerance for racism and no space for hate campaign. We'll report back. Now, that is interesting because we know that they've been pushing their whole campaign about racism, attacks, and all these different scenarios playing out in the W.
This idea is intuitively understood by the business community. An employee who significantly raises the worth and reputation of your business is shielded from hostile work situations, toxic behavior, and harassment. You don't let other workers pick on them without consequence while acting as though upholding professional standards isn't your duty. Brittney Griner's ban would involve more than just disciplining one athlete for misbehavior. IT would signify the WNBA's ultimate decision to create and uphold professional standards that safeguard all of its players, particularly its most prized ones. The league has the chance to declare that racial rhetoric has no place in professional basketball, regardless of the situation. Think about the message the league would get from a ban. Players would be warned that using racist epithets to disparage other athletes would have more significant repercussions than just social media backlash. It would show that the league takes harassment at work seriously and will not put up with conduct that would be unacceptable in any other setting. More significantly, it would demonstrate to Caitlin Clark and other players that the WNBA takes upholding professional standards and shielding its athletes from unfriendly conduct seriously. This has nothing to do with giving elite athletes preferential treatment. It concerns fundamental professional behavior that ought to be observed by all, irrespective of their position or level of popularity.
At WNBA, what is your current policy on respect to fellow players and racially motivated hostility? Yeah, I mean, what are we doing?
The way Caitlin was treated Clark is a microcosm of all the issues with the WNBA's talent management and positioning. The league appears happy to let the players who improve the sport become targets for irate rivals who are unable to match their success or effect, rather than honoring and defending them. This strategy hurts Clark more than just himself. It undermines women's basketball as a whole. Young girls who watch are given the impression that success will turn you into a target rather than a recognized accomplishment when the league's biggest star is subjected to ongoing harassment and targeting without league action. It instructs them feel it's okay to bring someone down with fabricated scandals and improper actions rather than trying harder to equal their accomplishment. This strategy has far-reaching long-term effects that go well beyond any one instance. The WNBA runs the danger of fostering an atmosphere where gifted players might decide to pursue other options rather than put up with persistent abuse if it permits its stars to be singled out with impunity. Additionally, it runs the danger of offending the new followers that athletes like Clark have introduced to the game, those who come to witness basketball greatness instead of drama on reality TV.
What happens when a white girl joins a majority black league? Her coming to the league brings more viewers, more ad money. The Caitlin Clark tide is going to, if embraced, rise all boats. The majority in the league, which is black women, has done everything they can to not welcome Caitlin Clark to the league. Why? There has never been any cost for black WNBA players.
The WNBA is at a turning point as a result of the Brittney Griner affair. The league has two options. Either it will finally create professional standards that shield all players from inappropriate behavior, or it will stick to its current course of selective enforcement and cowardly leadership that puts avoiding tough choices ahead of upholding fundamental professional conduct. Gurria's ban would make it abundantly evident that the NBA takes its commitment to shielding its players from offensive conduct seriously and that racial epithets have no place in the game. It would show that the WNBA has uniform rules for all players, regardless of their fame or standing, and that winning on the floor does not justify improper behavior. But doing nothing would validate the suspicions of many onlookers.